Yo, what's poppin', everybody? It's the No Level Cap podcast. We back once again with the crew. I want y'all to give me a minute to introduce my incredible co-hosts. We've got the collector of collectors and the master of Twitch. What's going on, Will Coleman?
Just to let it be known, I ain't been mastering Twitch none this week because I've been sick. So yeah, a bunch of sniffles, medicine, sneezing, headache, dry mouth, all that, just horrible. But
Gotta go get that Mucinex. Get the
but
guy to
um,
beat
but
up the
um,
giant green monster.
I need to do that. But right now I'm at about 80, 85, 90. I'm getting there. So by tomorrow I should be back to 100%. Maybe I can get back to trying to master Twitch again if I don't have no problems.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Next we got the Black Daredevil and the secret weapon of No Level Cap, Terrence Flowers. Terrence, what's going on, man? Y'all okay over there?
Man, this week was definitely something. He's referring to the snowstorm for those that don't. Well, it wasn't.
Yeah, you've been
snowstorm.
fighting Bobby Drake for the last couple of days, so I just been wondering.
I said snowstorm, winter storm. I live in Austin, Texas, and in Texas, yeah, got really the temperatures dropped. There was a lot of rain. At least in Austin, I can't speak to the other areas like Dallas. I think maybe they did have snow or they had more like ice and whatnot. But here, it rained a lot, and then the temperatures dropped below freezing, and so a lot of it turned into ice. And the main thing that happened was a lot of trees went down just because they were so heavily weighed down by the ice that a lot of them lost limbs. A lot of them were split. So there's a lot of trees that are having to be cleaned up, and a lot of people lost power as well. So they're still working on that. Thank God that, my roommates and we didn't lose power, but it was still an interesting week to say the least. Just every year it seems like we get 1 week in Texas where just we get actual winter and then it goes away because today it went back into the 60s. So we're good now. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
we.
No, go ahead.
Nah, my bad. No, you good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, yeah. Outside of that, I still been playing Sonic Frontiers. I actually been the more I play it, the more that I enjoy it. Like the Super Sonic boss battles, are really well done. They're actually the most enjoyable part of the game, and the soundtrack is really good. It's not a perfect game by any means. There's still some issues here and there, but as I mentioned before, like if this is the direction Sega wants to take Sonic in, then I think that it's a good direction. They just have to make sure that they add a little bit more polish to the next games. I'll put it that way. But other than that, I'm all good. Now that we're out of the winter storm, yeah, sunny days ahead, hopefully.
I'm glad that everything's all right on your end. I was kind of concerned. I saw a headline, people was thousands without power and no clear path back. I'm like, holy shit, Terrence, what's going on? Is everybody okay down there?
Hey, but I just stayed inside those couple of days and just
that's really
no. Well, I tell you what I did the day before when I saw that the temperature was dropping. I went to the grocery store and everybody else did too, so there was lines out the ass. But I'm glad that I did because I was able to hold it down those couple of days, and then when it was okay to go out again, I still had stuff stocked up. So yeah, I just made sure to be prepared for it.
We caught a lucky break for once as far as the weather goes. It was supposed to get bad here. Some parts of Tennessee did get bad, but here it rained, and then like you said, it was so cold the rain turned to ice, but there just wasn't enough of it to do any real damage, and so it was just minorly annoying for a couple of hours or half a day, and then after that we were kind of in the clear. I'm pretty glad about that because like you, at least once a year, we get that winter weather where we just snowed in for 2 days, can't go anywhere, can't do anything. We just be happy to have power.
Yeah. Happy to have power and internet. Oh, water too, because I will say during the 2021 Texas winter storm, when I actually lost we lost power somewhere along the way, but the first thing we lost was water. And man, when you lose water, you'd be surprised what what comes with that. Imagine that you can't flush your toilets, you can't. Of course, obviously you can't shower, wash your dishes or anything, but
right,
yeah, there's. A lot of people think about, losing power, but yeah, losing water, it's equally as bad.
That's worse in a way. Without power, there's certain little hacks you can do and just try to get by. But without water, it's a lot of stuff you got to do and do without. And I'm glad that you didn't have to go through that this time around.
Yeah.
Next up, we got the living cartoon and the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. How you doing, Rakeem?
Man, first of all, I want to address Will Coleman. What's been going around, it got me too, because I was sick this week. I don't know what happened, bro. I've been in and out with like sore throats, headaches, chills. I had chills and I had hot flashes. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I'm good now.
Menopause.
I think
I was kind of thinking that, but I was like, well, I'll just leave that in my head.
I called it menopause. I felt like what I was going through.
You becoming Blizzard Flazzard. That's what you becoming.
I was becoming Flazzard Blizzblaze from Dragon Quest: The Adventures of Die. But I was pretty sick this week. I think it was a result of maybe the shoot I did a few weeks ago, because it seemed like a lot of people got sick from that shoot. So I've been inside mainly. I actually took a couple of days off from work. I'm still taking it easy. I'm not completely good yet, so I'm still going to take it easy for a while. But the good thing is I had some time to sit at home and game a little bit. So I've been playing this retro RPG that came out, 8-Bit Adventures 2, a follow-up to an old RPG I think came out like 2017, 2016, that I played. I really enjoyed. It was very indie RPG maker game. And the sequel, it's a one-man team. The guy really stepped it up, graphics, music, everything. It's really been enjoyable. I've been playing the heck out of it. It's a nice little blast from the past kind of retro RPG. That's what I've mainly been playing. And, here and there I play certain things, but I haven't been really into playing my console games as much, at least the past few weeks. Just haven't had the motivation. The sickness took a lot of the motivation away from me. So playing something kind of simple on my computer just was better. But other than that, everything's going good. Hopefully I'll be back at 100% soon.
Hey, that's what I'm trying to hear. Lastly, we've got the One Punch Man and the master of combos himself, Mr. Devin Butts. Devin, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. I'm unfortunate my fellow friends here have been sick. I had like a sneeze spell like a few days ago that I thought I was going to get sick, because normally when that happens, I get sick, but my throat didn't feel weird. So I kind of confirmed, like, every time my throat feels weird, I know I'm sick. Like, there's just no getting around it. So my throat wasn't feeling weird. So whatever that sneezing spell was stopped the next day. Actually, I just started a new job this week. So that, I think that day that it started, I don't think I had to go to work that day. So it kind of just went away. But I've been actually just finished this week, Hi-Fi Rush. I've been playing that game like crazy. Enjoyed it. Xbox got a W with that one. Xbox, Microsoft, keep making games like that, man. Just keep putting games like that on your console. You just gotta keep shadow dropping them, but you just keep making games like that, man. Like I was blown away by it. It was a really good experience. I think it took about 12 hours to beat. Maybe 12 to 15, and then it's got like a lot of extra content afterwards, like costumes for everybody and stuff like that. So yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed that game. So yeah, that's what I've been on most of this week. That and work.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Hi-Fi Rush earlier in the week, and me and you talked about it for a little bit, where you were like, I think this could be a game of the year contender. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like there are so many heavy hitters that if it is a game of the year contender, something went horribly wrong with some of those other games. Like, you think about all the games supposed to be coming out this year: Street Fighter 6, Resident Evil 4, Final Fantasy 16, Starfield, Spider-Man 2, on and on and on. And like, for like it, you know how it is. Like, you get nominated based on who played you and the reviews. And I'm just like, man, in a world where Hi-Fi Rush gets nominated, that means one of those games that was supposed to, and Zelda, I forgot about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, like one of those games that was supposed to knock your fucking socks off, like had all the hype, got pushed out of last year. One of those games disappointed incredibly, because like that's the only way. But I mean, you never know. Like I looked online, I saw the Open Critic was like a 90, which is, it's really hard to hit an average score of a 90. Like that shit is almost impossible. Very few games ever get that far. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. That's all I can really say about that.
I mean, like I said, it has to at least get something. I think
it could get best action game or something like that.
Absolutely.
Best action game, sound design, and art style. If you don't get one of those,
I can see that.
I'm gonna be
it should
looking
get two of the three, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, like I said, my eyes were a little raised with Hellraiser. Hellsinger didn't get the audio design, or what was it? Sound design.
Yeah.
I was like,
best sound design, I think.
If this doesn't get it, I'm like, Somebody can pay somewhere. There's no way. That's all I'm gonna say. But it was a good game. It's a really good game. If you can play it, play it. I mean, you got Game Pass, it's free. It costs what, $20. Unfortunately, you can't play it. I try to play it with my PlayStation controller. It's only compatible with Xbox controller on the PC for whatever reason. So you're gonna have to play mouse and keyboard.
You know why?
Got on PC.
Well, there are programs for that to get around that.
Emulators.
DS4 Windows will get you around that so that you can just it recognizes it as a Xbox controller. So, lastly, I am Sage Ashford, the man that won't shut up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about what I've been getting into. It's been Trails. I'm back on Trails Cold Steel 4. I'm almost finished. And we're going to move on, not because of the Trails conversation being too much, but because we got a lot to get into today. So if you didn't know, No Level Cap goes live every Monday morning. We appear on YouTube for video fans. We appear on Spotify for audio fans. We're also on TikTok. Give us a follow before the government bans that goddamn clock out for good. All right. So let's just go ahead and get into it. We had a whole other show planned, or like I was working on another show, and like we finish after every show, we kind of talk about like, okay, well, what are we gonna do next week? And I was in the works of like we had some suggestions we had bandied about, and I had some ideas, and there was one thing that I was really taking with, and I was pretty excited to get into. And then something happened that said, hey, fuck what you about to do. Come up with something. You finna do another show. And I looked up at what had happened, and I was like, you right, I'm doing another show. So we covering DC now. James Gunn, he had talked about this, like after he was placed in charge of the DC universe, he's basically said, oh, I'm gonna try to have, the first vision for my DC universe come out by the end of January, before like February started. And he did on the last day of January. He had it. I think it was the last day of January. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
On the very last day of January, he came out and said, hey, these are the projects that we're going to do. There's a lot to it. They did like a little, the day before they did like a press conference, basically, that they, kept real hush hush and only let certain people inside and like the insiders, and so that they can tease and hype it up just a little bit before and then like now finally we took all that shit and we forgot all the fucking insiders like we're supposed to. So let's clarify a few things going forward. First off, because they're like his DC universe is still kind of murky in a way. Like he clarified some of it, but it's still murky in a way. One thing we do know is that Henry Cavill, he's confirmed out. James Gunn talked about it. He said dude was never in. Like he basically, his vision for the DC universe going forward included a young Superman, which he was young when y'all casted him, and then y'all wasted 11 years of his life. But they said he was out. Ezra Miller, they might still be in. Gal Gadot, she potentially is still in. We'll see. Ezra Miller is supposed to be attending some therapy and stuff, and if they complete it, they might be able to be Flash. I don't think I want that, quite frankly. I think that if you're going to take Henry Cavill, who was, quite frankly, in shit films, but he was not a shit Superman. He had a lot of potential. And so, like, if you're going to take him out, you might as well just go ahead and fresh start the whole thing personally. With the exception, I guess, of John Cena, Viola Davis. They're reprising their roles. John Cena is going to be Peacemaker still. Viola Davis is going to be Amanda Waller still. Fine. Those are fine because that's James Gunn's projects. The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, those were his projects. If he wants to say, look, all the shit don't count no more except my shit, I mean, he's the head. He's the head architect, so I feel like he should be able to do that. Other than that, there are still 4 DC films coming out that have nothing to do with this new universe. We'll see. Shazam! Fury of the Gods comes out March 17th. We'll probably do a review of that for everybody wondering. Flash, June 16th. They kind of hinted that that's going to be like a reset. And, it's like the little Flashpoint thing. I don't like how they've taken Flashpoint and just made it into like, this is going to be our reset. I don't like that, but that's where we're at right now. Blue Beetle comes out August 18th. I don't know what the status of that is. Like, since he has no connection to everything else, you could easily just, shove him into like the new DC universe. And then lastly, you have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom coming out December 25th. That, from my understanding, the actor for Aquaman really wants to be Lobo. Maybe they make that happen. And then in 2024, you've got Joker 2, October 24th. October 4th, 2024. You've got Joker 2. After that, you say what, Keen?
My birthday.
It is. If you ask, I'll go see it, but I don't want to. I don't want to go see Joker.
I know. I understand. I totally understand.
Setting that aside, like the opening of it, they got a title for it. It's chapter 1, not phase 1. Marvel got the phases. DC said we're gonna have chapters. Chapter 1 is called Gods and Monsters. Kind of a cool title. I kind of dig it. There's a certain number, there's like 8 projects they announced. I do want to go ahead and get into that really quickly. You've got Creature Commandos. That's going to be the first project. It's like an animated series. It's already in production. It's being written by James Gunn. It's got a team of about 7 people. So this is where you get your monsters. You've got Rick Flag from Rick Flag Senior. You've got Nina Berserski. You've got Dr. Phosphorus, who's like a former Batman villain. Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, G.I. Robot, and then the Weasel from Suicide Squad, all going to be in that. That comes out presumably on HBO Max. Really cool thing about Creature Commandos, the people doing that will possibly also, they want them to also do live action. So like the first thing, it's going to be animated, but the people they tap to do like the voices, they want those people to also do the live action. So hopefully we can see something like that. Next is Waller. James Gunn's, it's like a spinoff of Peacemaker. You'll have Viola Davis come back. She's going to be Amanda Waller. It'll be written by one of the writers, Crystal Henry of Watchmen, who wrote Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, the guy that helped do Doom Patrol, the TV show.
This was rumored a while ago, wasn't it, Waller?
Was it?
I remember hearing about Amanda Waller show a long time ago that it was in the works. So I don't know if it was like they're just like going ahead and doing it now, or it was on postponed. But I remember hearing they were doing talking about doing a Waller show many years ago. I could be wrong.
I mean, you probably not. Hell, they at some point or another, and that's the thing that I want to get to as soon as I get through this. At some point or another, they kind of rumored everything. There was always something being rumored. Like, how many DC projects that they say they were going to do, and then we just never got them. They just always just vanished into the ether. It felt like it was tons. So I'm glad Waller is one of the ones that's not going to be that. The first big film that we get is Superman Legacy. It's supposed to be written by James Gunn, potentially directed by James Gunn. They specifically said it's not an origin story. It'll be focusing on balancing Superman's life as a Kryptonian with his human heritage, his human upbringing and shit. There's a quote that I really love that they talked about. He is kindness in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned. And I'm like, yeah, that's supposed to be Superman. Anytime you stray from that, you fucked yourself. The release date for that, July 11th, 2025. Next up, Lanterns. It's like they were doing they had a Lantern show that was going to be rumored, and they said, fuck that show. We scrapping it because it never could. It had been in the works for like 2 years now, 2.5 years, and it never quite got off the ground. And I guess James Gunn and Peter Safran, the other half of the architects, both basically said, fuck that, we're going to do something new. And so now it'll be something along the lines, it's described as something along the lines of True Detective. It'll be based on Earth. It's going to feature Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. They're kind of hyping it up as like a really important storyline. They said it's going to be like a big part of the main story, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. The next project is The Authority. If you've never heard of them, they're like a super team. They weren't originally from DC. They were from Wildstorm. DC bought Wildstorm. And The Authority was basically like, what if the Justice League got fed up? Like, we tired of watching y'all fuck everything up. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to do right, or we going to take over. And anytime you try to do wrong, we will intervene. And because we got powers and you don't, it ain't nothing you can do about it. That's basically who The Authority was. That's going to be the idea. James Gunn talked about how not every show, not every film will be good guys and bad guys. Sometimes it'll be white hats, black hats, and gray hats. They also described it as kind of like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. They know that you want them on the wall. They think that they're that important. Like somebody got to do this job that we're doing. So that's what the authority is going to be. The next up is Paradise Lost. It's supposed to be like an HBO series, Game of Thrones style, set on Themyscira. A lot of political intrigue and stuff like that. It's supposed to take place before Wonder Woman. Now, interestingly enough, I'm reading this off of The Hollywood Reporter. It says it takes place before the events of the Wonder Woman films, but they don't say if it's Gal Gadot's films or if it's a new set of Wonder Woman films. I really hope it's a clean sweep. Like we just, get all that old shit out of here and but we'll see. Next up, a film that I'm also really excited for, The Brave and the Bold. This is DCU's Batman. Just to be clear, if you didn't know, Robert Pattinson, that Batman, Matt Reeves directed Robert Pattinson Batman, that's not involved in this at all. That film and everything that it does is its own universe. Supposedly, it's just a trilogy, and in this sideshow called Penguin, that's its own universe. This is something different. It'll be Bruce Wayne, seemingly an older Bruce Wayne, working with Damian Wayne, his son, as Robin. And it'll just be like a father-son story where like the son is like a murderous assassin that Bruce is trying to learn how to rein in. The Batman sequel is also still happening. That'll come out October 3rd, 2025. Next up, Booster Gold, an HBO series based on like the time-traveling dude from if you ever watched Justice League Unlimited, he's the guy that like came back to the past. He wants to be a superhero. He's got future knowledge, future tech. He's going to be a superhero. And it seems like they're going directly with that. They're not making a lot of changes. Next, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This is based off of a really good miniseries by Tom King, who I'm not a big fan of normally, but this was just superb. Like one of the best takes on Supergirl I've ever read. It's basically just about, Supergirl, of course, she spent more time on Krypton. She has a little bit more of the Kryptonian culture in her, but she also still has that kindness that Superman has. And so she's out in space trying to get to know everybody and trying to figure out how to exist in a world where her planet no longer exists. And, you get to see her doing a lot of kind acts and, helping people along the way. I don't know if they're going to directly do that, but we'll see. And then the last thing finally is Swamp Thing, which is like a horror film, and it'll just be the last little part of the first chapter. The first part of the first chapter, excuse me, because as a whole, chapter 1 is supposed to encapsulate a lot of shit, and we don't know what the last thing is going to be, but we do know that the last of the first part is Swamp Thing. All right, so I got all that out, and I'm tired of talking, so I'm about to hand it off to one of y'all. What is your favorite project off the list, Rakeem?
By far, Booster Gold. Ever since I was a kid and I saw Booster Gold on Justice League, I think it was either Unlimited. I don't know if he was in the original Justice League cartoon.
It was Unlimited.
I believe it was Unlimited, and I was just enamored with the character because it's basically a false superhero portraying himself in the past but using future technology. And there was something about like how he has this kind of like false bravado, but deep inside he has a lot of insecurities as well, and he has a sense that he has to prove himself. That's something that's kind of endearing to me about that character. And of course he fucks up a lot of times too, but overall I really like that character. I remember they did a version of him in Smallville. One of the few good things about Smallville is that they actually use a lot of DC characters in there. Surprisingly, if you watch that show, you wouldn't think they went that far to get Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, but they went there. So I'm happy. He doesn't get represented a lot these days, so I'm happy to see. That's definitely my number one project. Behind that, probably I kind of want to give this Creature Commandos a shot because it just sounds cool to me. I just like the that kind of creature-esque kind of hero squad. I think I'll kind of vibe with that a little more. Something different. Kind of on the lines of Swamp Thing. And I gotta say, man, they really want Swamp Thing to work because they already had the Swamp Thing show a few years ago. It only lasted one season. It's had a cartoon show.
That shit got canceled so fucking quick, bro.
It did, man. I just feel like somebody in DC was like, yeah, but we gotta try Swamp Thing one more time, man, just for me. Somebody back there maybe James Gunn is also a fan of it.
It was critically. I believe the show when it came out, it was critically acclaimed, but like you said, it just got canceled in one season.
Yeah,
The show is very critically acclaimed. There's a old Swamp Thing comic book by writer Alan Moore that is like one of the most legendary comic books of all time. And so yeah, there's a lot of really good lore and material to pull from. And so I can imagine there are some writers that are just like, hey man, we can really get this right. That's why they did 2 movies, I believe, a cartoon show back in the 90s, and then like they brought it back, and now they bring it back again. Like, I credit to them for trying.
yeah. So yeah, that's probably my main ones. Other than that, the Green Lantern show definitely. I'm glad that like they decided on a direction with it, using multiple lanterns, because using just one lantern at this point is ridiculous. They have so many to choose from. The interactions will be interesting. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So mainly Booster Gold though. That's my guy. I'm looking forward to see how that show turns out.
Will, what's the project you looking forward to the most?
I'm with Keem on this one. I'm looking forward to seeing Booster Gold, especially for the simple fact that he Gunn described it as imposter syndrome as a superhero, and I'm just like, you know what? I kind of want to see how that kind of plays itself out in the writing and on the screen. I want to see how they make that really work, and I think they can really do it, depending on who they get to end up being Booster Gold. So I'm just like, I want to see that. I definitely want to see the Authority, because bring me that. Bring me that. I want to see that. I want to see the darkness happen. So by all means, let it rain. And last but not least, I'm definitely kind of on the side of maybe seeing lanterns. I'm kind of with that, because I do agree with King with that as well. There's too many of them for you to not just sit up here and put at least maybe 2, 3, or 4 of them on screen. You know what I'm saying? Don't just give me one. I mean, you already showed me you giving the 2 green ones here. I would love to see the other ones. Show me that. Put them together. Let them work. Show me the chemistry. Show me the hatred. Show me the comedy. Show me something. So yeah, I don't really have much, but those 3 shows right there: Lanterns, Booster Gold, and the Authority.
The Authority, Booster Gold should be interesting. They almost had Booster Gold on Legends of Tomorrow for a little bit. They cast Donald Faison. He was great, like the little bit. Like I hated Legends of Tomorrow. I know it's a lot of people that love that show. That show it was ass, man. I'm sorry, it was ass. But like Donald Faison was really good in it, and it was like their way of trying to save the show. If I had gotten my way, they'd have gotten him, and they'd have gotten Zach Braff to be Blue Beetle, to be Ted Cord, so you could have both of them together. Just get the Scrubs group together and get out of it. That show would have been fantastic. I would have risked watching that show, even though I never liked any of it, just to see those 2 interact. So hopefully they manage to hit the same kind of chemistry when they inevitably bring Blue Beetle in there. Devin, what's the project you looking forward to the most?
So y'all know me. Y'all know I'm the horror guy of the group. So Swamp Thing is definitely what I'm looking forward to the most. Now, the only thing that I'm concerned about is the few times I've seen like the superhero universes, like even Marvel. Well, actually, in this case, particularly Marvel, do the whole like horror-esque movie or film. It's kind of, I don't know if want to use the term campy, but it's just not. It's just not. It doesn't. It's got glue, but it's like, you know how you glue something, it's like it's stuck together for a little bit and it just kind of fall apart. In particular, the movie I'm talking about is New Mutants. I remember when they like made trailers for that, it was like these faceless things, and it's all just crazy. When I watched it, I'm like, bro, this movie kind of sucked. So I'm hoping that
Which is why they put it directly on Hulu.
So
Forgot
I
about
was
that.
just, it was. I'm just hoping that, I mean, they can actually find a lane that works for. Because I know they did that the series, and looking at that has some nice elements to it. It looked like it were kind of driving home like the very serious tone and stuff. But Swamp Thing has always been a character that I just really want to learn more about, just learn his origins. He's an interesting character, so that's definitely my number one. But close second and third would be the Creature Commandos, because that really reminds me of I love the quirky off like brand type teams. It kind of reminds me of Rise of the Imperfects. Like you got these really weird, they're kind of villain-esque group of characters. And then also Lanterns. I do want to see more on the Lanterns. I actually really did enjoy don't know how many people watch it, but I actually did enjoy the animated series Green Lantern
sir.
back in the day on Cartoon
Oh
Network.
yeah, that series is
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember watching that, having a good time with that, just seeing
That was part
about
of the
different
DC
cores.
Power Hour, Young Justice and Green Lantern. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, boy. So yeah, I think those Swamp Thing definitely my number one. Just keeping my fingers crossed on that one, keeping a piece of wood somewhere close to me to knock on it, that hopefully that it delivers. And yeah, but lanterns, I think that'll be definitely dope to see a lot of that. I'm assuming they'll probably go deeper into like just a lot of the cores, lantern cores. Because I that was really enjoyable, like with the animated series.
I don't think so.
They're just gonna kind of keep it.
From what they were talking about, they seem like, because there's specific quotes out there on different websites that from James Gunn and Peter Safran, and one of them was like the other show, because they were working on another show that they canceled. The other show, they were like, yeah, that was like more outer space focused and you know, a lot of like space sci-fi, and this is going to be more terrestrial,
Okay.
kind of focused on like a mystery or whatever. And the mystery does seem to be important, and they might sneak something in there. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get around to me, but like, I don't think that they'll do too much with the lantern cores just yet.
Okay. But yeah, those are my top three. If one that's an honorable mention for me would have to be also the Authority. I'm interested in that one. I kind of like the groups that where they're heroes, but it's like they've had enough. It's like, look, hey man, because that even James mentioned in his little synopsis when he did the video, he's like, by any means necessary. So like, you get a group of heroes and they throw that line in there. It's like, hey man, look, I mean, I'm a hero, but if I gotta punch you in the mouth real quick, hey man, I'm gonna punch you in the mouth. Hey, you know, we gotta try to. This is basically like, let's say if Batman was in this group, then the Joker would be dead. If this was the equivalent, it'd be like, look, Joker, stop it. Only way I can stop you, you gotta die. Enough is enough. You know.
It's time for change.
Would the Watchmen be kind of a group like that?
No, because they were never really a superhero group.
I think you would probably. True. The boys, pretty much from what my understanding of the Authority is, the boys, pretty much the Authority walked so the boys could run. That's pretty much what I've heard in a sense. That
is a lot. Well, it's a lot of that, but it's also like the Authority were basically, as far as you can be good guys that murder, the Authority were legitimately good guys. The boys, I mean, like they incidentally do good stuff sometimes, but ultimately they pieces of shit.
It pretty much what I've heard is like it's a seven that you can root for. That's what I've heard. Is like the Authority is like a 7 you can root for, and by the 7 I mean the 7 from the boys. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Boys actually the heroes of that story.
Yeah.
That is true. Terrence, what's up, man? Like, what's your favorite projects off the list?
So I just want to say, going into this, I definitely did a lot of like research just on all the stories, just trying to get an understanding of where this could go. Because at first, when I watched the video, I didn't have any knowledge of like the Authority or like Supergirl's story, like that particular comic book series, Creature Commandos. I didn't know anything about them. But upon doing more research, I just want to say I'm cautiously optimistic about this slate. It's a very interesting one. I'll put it that way. Like what's been announced. I mean, of course you have the stuff that's kind of like your standard, like another Superman film, another Batman film. But then you have like this kind of like weird James Gunn picks that are sprinkled throughout with like stuff like the Authority, Creature Commandos, you know, even Swamp Thing, you know, that's a risk. Especially since, you know, as we talked about, I mean, Swamp Thing in the past, it doesn't seem like it's done all that well, but, you know, they're willing to take another chance on it. So, I mean, I applaud him and Peter Safran for doing this. In terms of what's my favorite project, it's kind of hard to say because all of them, they really, if done well, they all have potential. But the one that I think I'm looking forward to right now the most is Superman Legacy, just because that sets the tone. If that film is good, especially after, let's be honest, Superman hasn't had a really good film in a long time. I mean, any film that's been, most of the films that we've gotten pretty much since we've been alive, they've been okay or like good at best. You know, like Man of Steel, Man of Steel is fine. I mean, Man of Steel is not a bad movie by any means, but it doesn't do with Superman what it should in terms of like his character. And then you have the Superman Returns from the 2000s, right?
2006, yeah.
Yeah, that one's okay. It just it's more like a romance drama than it is like a real Superman film. I mean, not Superman, but a superhero film in my opinion.
You can't have a Superman film where Superman don't throw a punch. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we just haven't had a really good Superman film in a long time. I mean, hell, even the sequels to the Christopher Reeves movies weren't good. So after Superman 2, I think it's pretty much a wrap after that.
Yeah.
So Superman just hasn't been done right in film in a very long time. So I'm really, really hoping that Superman Legacy is a turning point. And since James Gunn really, like Sage said earlier, he seems like he has an understanding of the character in terms of the way that he described him. Like Superman is that kindness in a world that thinks that kindness is old fashioned. Like, yes, that sounds like we're heading in the right direction with Superman. Don't try and make Superman like Batman. Don't make him dark and gritty and brooding. No, Superman is his own thing. Do what you're supposed to with him. Other than that, the other project that all of them I have some interest in, but the other one that I'm interested in just because when I watched a video on it and learned more about the comic book series that it's based on, I'm very curious to see how they're going to adapt it is Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Just that story just seems like maybe epic isn't the right word, but I'm very curious to see how they adapt that into a film. That's the right
word. It's the right word. Sci-fi epic.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious to see how they adapt that into a film because something like that, I can see that being adapted into a TV show, with multiple episodes and whatnot, but in just one film, it seems like a lot, but if they pull it off, it could be something big. And, Supergirl, she doesn't get quite the respect that she, deserves in comparison to Superman. She's always just considered just girl Superman, if we're being honest. So I'm hoping that this story, if it's done as well as the comic, it kind of puts her in a different perspective in people's minds and they start to see Supergirl in a different way. So I'm also interested in Lanterns just because it's time that we get a good Green Lantern live action property. So I'm excited for that. Overall, I'm excited for all this stuff just because there's so much potential here. And of course it depends on your actors, your directors, your script writers and everything. All of it needs to come together, but I'm excited for this slate. And I'll also say this, don't try and be like Marvel. Just let DC, I understand what they're trying to do, with the chapters and everything, it's the equivalent of phases and whatnot. But in terms of tone is what I mean. Don't try and be like Marvel, do your own thing. Establish the tone that DC characters should have and kind of like go from there. Don't be like Marvel where at this point where everybody's trying to be
silly, wacky,
everybody wants to be a quipster and everything. You don't have to do that. Just don't. I don't think that's the way it's going to be, but I'm just putting that out right there right now. Just don't try and be like Marvel. Do your own thing. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Make sure they got some cough drops on set too.
Cough drops for who?
Batman. Batman. I sound like Christian Bale.
Oh man.
I didn't ask for this.
I didn't ask for this.
Let me let's get this out of the way. If nothing else, I am happy that we have a united vision for the DC universe. That shit we had before, it was a mess and they was trying to rush things way too much. I have no reason to be optimistic yet, but I am because we have an architect. We have somebody that stood in front of us and told us the ideas. He told us the outlines. Remember, DC's tried this before, but when they tried it before, they tried that bullshit where it's just like they will show you a screen with some icons on it and some years underneath, and they was like, you know what it is? Yeah, you see that Green Lantern icon in 2022? That's it. That's Green Lantern. Hell no. And the lack of outlines and the fact they were trying to be too freeform with it was why Marvel was able to get as far as they did and DC couldn't. Like, you've got to know what you want your characters to be. You can't just bring a writer into the room and be like, hey, man, write Flash, and then we'll figure out how it fit in after the fact. No, somebody's going to have to sit down and be like, okay, well, this is our vision for the Flash. This is what we're trying to do with the Flash going forward. Can you write a story about the Flash, when he first gets his powers? Can you write a story about the Flash and he meets his first sidekick, or he goes into the past, or like he goes to another Earth and he meets the Flash of Earth 2. Can you do that? You can't just set a writer loose, because you might never get the film you're looking for. And so fortunately, we do have somebody that is able to do this, because what we had before, that shit was some ass. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care if we lose fans, gain some hate. I don't give a damn. As somebody that's been reading DC since the 90s, I've gone back, read Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, all that shit. That Snyder stuff shit, it was not DC. And it sucked that we had fans that claimed to care about DC, and they was content to just get warmed over garbage water so long as they had anything in the theaters. Like, I ain't like that shit. You stripped all the colors out the DC universe. You made Superman into some dude that don't know how to have fun. I don't know how the fuck we got a film where Superman's dad allowed himself to die in a tornado instead of Clark just going out there and saving him. Like, I don't get that shit. Like, I don't know how we got Man of Steel, and half the best DC comics are Superman origin stories. Like, don't tell me it's a different interpretation. You can do different interpretations in the comics, but like, you only get so many shots with the films. Like, when you do the films, I feel like you got to do the classic version of a character. Like, that's the character that needs to be introduced to the wider audience, not some this different interpretation. The people that they not fit to go read the comics and see the classic version. So you need to show them the classic version, why people love that character. So like, for me, all along those lines, like, the character I'm most excited for is Superman. He's not my favorite superhero, but if you don't have a good Superman film, you fucked. Like, I'm sorry, like that. If you don't get Superman right, if you can't, everything starts with Superman. He's the reason for the second age of superheroes after the Justice Society in the comic books. He's the reason for the futuristic superheroes, Legion superheroes. And Gunn, really, like Terrence said, he's saying all the right things. We're not going to recap the origin. You know his origin. He came from Krypton. His parents took care of him. He got the best parents. It's Superman. Instead, it's Superman in Metropolis. You'd hope dealing with the Daily Planet. And like, to me, hopefully, I even have an idea, like, as far as like his villain, if they're balancing, his human heritage and his Kryptonian heritage. Hopefully he faces the Eradicator. That's like an artifact from Kryptonian history. It's turned Clark into Kryptonian before, made him forget who he is as a human. That's like a great villain. It's not Lex. It's not Zod. It's not any of them characters that we get all the time. Like, it's somebody new, and it can like help. Because that's the thing with DC. It's always the same handful of people. It's always like, oh, here's Superman, here's Batman, here's Joker, here's Lex. Like, okay, man. And then you go over there to Marvel, and that's the thing. Like, you go over to Marvel and you're like, oh, wow, there's all these different characters and all these different villains, and it just seemed like such an expansive universe. And with DC, it's always just the same dozen characters, villains and heroes, maybe 10 to 15 heroes and villains, and it's always the same ones. People just think they one note, and that's whack. So, like, hopefully they do dig into, like, the crates a little bit. The other thing I'm excited for is Lanterns. You see the shirt. Green Lantern's my favorite superhero of all time. Him and Iron Man 1 and 2, 1A and 1B. Hal and John on Earth working on a cosmic horror case sounds pretty sweet. The way that they talked about it, how they're like basically, digging into something that's going to be a big deal and it's going to pop up later on in our phase. I don't think this is what they're doing, but you could do Blackest Night that way. Ooh. Like they went hunting on Earth, they looking into some shit, and they dug a little too deep, and you fuck around and find Necron and the Black Lanterns, and you got to deal with that. And like, maybe you don't have the other core yet. Maybe you don't have the Sinestro core, the Red Lanterns, the Blue Lanterns, the Indigo. You don't have those yet, but you do have the Black Lanterns, and like, all the superheroes have to team up to fight against Necron and the Black Lanterns at the end of the phase. Like, because you already did Darkseid. You did Darkseid, even if everybody didn't go watch Scott. Everybody didn't watch the Snyder version of Justice League, but you still did.
You don't. It's not worth 4 hours.
It really ain't.
Hey man, people said it was fire. I'm not listening to those people, but that's what they said.
Their fire must be lukewarm.
Exactly.
Hey, fire ain't burning nothing, huh?
Yeah, their fire doesn't burn red.
But yeah, like, you did Darkseid. Like, we've done Darkseid. So, like, you got to go somewhere else. You got to do different characters. And you could do, by the end of the phase, because you got to build to something. We've got to be building to some kind of villain at the end. And it could be Brainiac. It could be Mongol. It could be all these characters. But, like, I think it should, like, with Lanterns being what it is, and it's supposedly tying in, it could easily be Necron, and at the end they just fighting like zombies and shit. That'd be cool. Booster Gold, because I didn't realize we were gonna be doing threes. I thought everybody's just gonna pick one. If I'm gonna pick up, actually, nope. If I'm going to pick another one, it's Brave and the Bold. I don't love Batman, but I do love the Bat family. That was why I was so excited for Nightwing, but that's my guy. I don't love Batman at all. Like, I feel like he's overdone, but I do love the idea of having, the Bat family. And they talked about how it won't just be Batman and Damian. There'll be other members of the Bat family. Maybe you get Batgirl getting. I do think that's fascinating, and so I'm pretty excited. I'm interested in seeing, like maybe if Brave and the Bold is good, and I really hope it is. I don't really have any feeling one way or the other on Matt Reeves' Batman, but it would be interesting if both are good and you got two different schools arguing over which Batman is better. And it's like, nah, I like the one with the psychopath Batman who ain't got no gadgets and he's sipping for Zoe Kravitz. Or it's like, nah, I like the older Batman that's got to deal with all these little ass Robins making trouble for him all over Gotham. Like, that would be cool. I would like to see that. Like, to see people argue, like, which one is better? Like, the Batman that's off on his own by himself, or the Batman that's got his whole crew with him. And so, like, Brave and the Bold, as long as you keep introducing members of it, I'm gonna be excited for that. So, like, I hope that's a good film. And then I do hope Booster Gold is good. I grew up reading Booster Gold. Great character. Booster Gold's in one of the first trade paperbacks I ever bought when I got Justice League International when I was like 10 years old, I think. And, he was just like this fucking shyster from the future. And he was clearly just trying to get his name up. And he joined the Justice League. And they was like, we don't really trust you, but you did help out. So we'll try y'all, see what happens. I like that guy. Like, he has such a great character arc. And if they start out with him being like a shyster, and then you get to where he is in the comic books, where he's literally going throughout time saving the superheroes, but he's still got to pretend to be that same incompetent, bumbling idiot because nobody can know what he does. That shit, like the way that story eventually leads, is so cool. And I hope that I don't know if it's a show or a film. I think it's a show. Booster Gold. Do y'all know?
Yeah,
like,
it's an HBO Max show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that show eventually gets where it's supposed to get, like, that could be pretty dope. So I guess the next question: how do y'all feel about the Elseworlds stuff? Like, if you didn't know, James Gunn mentioned that a number of upcoming DC projects would not be tied into the DC universe going forward. Like I said earlier, Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's Batman, Shazam, The Flash, probably Aquaman 2 and Blue Beetle. Do y'all think that's a good idea, or is it like adding confusion? Like, because when you say like two Batmen, it's like, is that gonna throw people, or is it gonna be fine? Like, what do y'all think? Like, Rakeem, what do you think about this Elseworld stuff?
It kind of goes back to kind of a problem that DC had in the past, right? We've talked about this before, where they'll have issues with continuity because they'll have multiple Earths, multiple timelines, or multiple comics on one character, and that can cause confusion. And that's usually when they have some kind of wipeout event and start the whole thing over. I think it will cause confusion at first because, like we said, everybody doesn't follow all the news. There's people who probably won't even know these shows are going to be out. Didn't watch anything about the James Gunn thing until they come out. I'm like, what the hell is Booster Gold? When does that come out? What is that? So
when's Booster
I think
Bronze?
it will cause. I think for the casual,
Peter Platinum.
Peter Platinum.
That's a real character.
Is it?
That is a real yes, from the Booster Gold universe. He's like Booster Gold from the far future. So
okay.
Peter
but yeah, I think for the casual viewers, it definitely will cause some confusion, but especially like if they decide to make the Elseworlds, maybe they pop them in every once in a while, like go back like farther in the future, you might make cameos of some of the older characters in some of the newer shows, which is probably the reason that they're keeping them as Elseworlds. I think it will cause some confusion. However, I get why he's doing it, because it's basically a way to write them off so he can start this new continuity. Because you have all these movies that have to come out first, and then he gets to do his own thing. I think it's kind of I guess it's better than just canceling everything and not having anything come out. Have movies that slated to come out, do their thing. Hopefully they're successful, and then you might be able, like you said with Blue Beetle, heck, it's pretty much right in the timeline, and we haven't had it established yet. You can bring that into the main continuity and use Blue Beetle in future projects, and he doesn't even really have to be an Elseworld story. But for me personally, I think it will cause some confusion. I don't know if there was a better way to do it. I think he needed to do this to kind of get his stories in what it needed to be and get those older DC properties out the way. And sometimes some of it would be better for it because we're ready for the new era. Those old movies, if they had a different tone, they had a whole different direction, and they're probably going to have a very jarring juxtaposition with the new stuff. So maybe it'd be better to separate them to Elseworlds.
Okay. Will, what do you think about this Elseworld shit?
Well, honestly, from like King's beginning point, he kind of got there, but I also was just like, this can cause trouble, and I think it would cause trouble mostly for the casual watcher, or at least the casual DC fan. Someone who's kind of like they're only on this line of thing. They don't want to jump to this next thing to learn about this one, or the different Batman, so on and so forth. So I think it'll cause problems for the casual more than it will for the hardcore. Like if there's someone hardcore and they love this type of stuff and they love learning about the different like offhand characters here and there, or that different version of Batman or that different version of Superman, they'll love this. They'll eat this up. They'll eat that from the plate, no problem. And it can lead to a lot of confusion for people who are just on the outside looking in or just not knowing that this stuff exists. It will suck for a lot of viewers off top. They'll be like, Elseworlds, what is this? Why did y'all put this out? Who told y'all to make this? No one needs to know about this other guy. Why is Robin Pattinson over here? Who's this other Batman y'all talking about? What does he do? There's 4 Robins? Huh? You know, it's gonna be people getting lost out here with that. And I hate to see it happen too for such franchises such as those. I hate to see that happen. I really would, but it's gonna cause confusion. It's gonna cause some early confusion for people who just don't know.
Devin, what do you think, man? Do you think this Elseworld stuff is it gonna be fine? Like, do you think it's gonna turn out well, or do you think people just gonna be like, hey man, I don't know what's going on?
I mean, I personally think there is a part of me to think it could add confusion, but when you look at the comic book universes, Marvel and DC, parallel universes, and it's just like hand in hand. It's just kind of part of it now. There's, even we got like MCU film, Spider-Man No Way Home. You got 3 different Spider-Man. So we have movies already like going into that territory of like multiple universes together with multiple versions of one character in the same universe. Even with the what if thing. I mean, they just showing like, oh, this, when they show Ultron's like, oh, I destroyed all universe. Oh, there's more? Oh, there's more? So they're already dabbling with stuff like that. And I mean, for me, it's cool. I mean, I like comic book characters. I like that stuff when you show me different things and different stories. I like that. I love seeing different. When I first watched Flashpoint Paradox, I just thought that was dope to see Bruce Wayne's father be Batman. He like, that stuff my son did? Well, he didn't kill nobody. He was like, I'm out here with the hands? Nah. Like, I thought that was dope. I thought that was fire. So it just depends on, like, again, I do think that people that are not as in tune, as in touch with a lot of this stuff, they like, that's like, there's some people out there that don't know that there's multiple versions of characters that have been written before. There's still a group of people that don't know that.
You still have people out there who is like, they don't know the difference between DC and Marvel. So you still have people like that. It's like, why? When is Aquaman gonna show up in the Avengers?
Yeah, what I was saying.
They like, man, you remember that movie they had Batman fighting Spider-Man? That movie crazy, man. That was my favorite film right there. They didn't make more of that right there. It's like, what film did you watch?
Are you fighting Arachnid?
I mean, they fighting Black Spider.
It's like you watch one of them Ghana films, them Ghana homemade films. But yeah,
problems always.
But when I first heard it, I was like, okay, well, Elseworld, I guess it's kind of a cool name, like just to be like, this is a different thing aside from what you normally see. I think it'll be fine. Like I said, Marvel already does. It's just kind of intertwined in the comics. There's just so many different versions. I mean, you might have the people like, man, I don't want to see what it is, Earth 55, 52. I don't want to see that Batman. I want a regular Batman. It's like, I guess some people just like that vanilla. They don't care about nothing else. But me, like I said, me personally, I like seeing different versions. I love the different versions of Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2099. I love Spider-Man Noir. Just all these different Spider-Man. I like seeing that type of stuff. So for me, I don't have a problem with it, and I don't think it'll be a huge problem. But again, as Rakeem and Will have already done, I'm gonna echo theirs. It could maybe for the casual be like, well, why they got a Batman on here, but ain't that Batman? But then they what you said Batman 5052. Well, what about that one? What all right, well, what about the all right, so
I mean, I definitely feel like at some point I'm gonna be in folks' place because they do watch, they watch whatever blockbuster film come out. And I definitely want in the future they're gonna have the blockbuster on the big screen, Batman or whoever, and they can be like, why are these two characters different? What happened there? And I'm gonna have to explain it at some point. So I'm sure of that. Terrence, what do you think about this Elseworlds label?
A couple of things. One, I wonder, are they literally going to have like DC Elseworlds like on the title somewhere or like the box or something like that to like clearly indicate like this is different from the mainline stuff, or
subtitle?
Are they? Yeah, I'm wondering how they're going to how exactly they're going to like label it. Like, are they just going to say like in a press release or something like this is Elseworld, and then it's like it's up to you to keep up with those press releases or whatever, or are they literally going to have it labeled as Elseworld in like the title, like DC Elseworlds Teen Titans Go or something like that? Or are they going to do that or what?
No, zero shot. Like
they're just going to say Elseworld in like a title. I mean, not a title, but in a press release somewhere, and then it's just up to you to like keep up with it essentially.
You might get like a press release, or it might be at most, like they at the beginning where they show like the credits and shit.
Yeah,
they'll show like the credits, and it'll be like whatever the Flash movie is gonna be called. And then after they show you the emblem, the logo, it'll go off, and then on screen you'll see Elseworlds, and then that'll go off. But like you'll never have it to where you're in the theater, like how when you pull up to the movie theater and it's got a to the films. You'll never be Elseworlds Batman. You'll never see that.
Okay. I mean that makes sense. That makes sense. At first I was concerned because and you mentioned this briefly earlier, Sage, was with Creature Commandos, is that they're going to try and do, well, not try, they are doing, the same actors are going to portray the characters in live action and also do the voiceover for them as well. And I was kind of concerned the way that James Gunn worded it in the reveal is that was kind of like what they were going to try and do with a lot of the animated stuff moving forward. But I think he's clarified that, well, it's a mixture of both. Because I know that a fan, I think, kind of asked about that on Twitter, and he responded that it's like yes to both, where like some of the like the DCU stuff, yes, they're going to keep that consistent, but like the Elseworld stuff, you'll still have, like your voice actors who have voiced a lot of those characters, or just different actors portray those characters, which is good. Because I was concerned at first. I was like, having the same live action actors do the voiceover for all those characters, that's going to get pretty messy. And we're not going to get like different takes on Batman. It's just going to be the same one for the next like 10, 15, 20 years. And it's like, I wouldn't want that. So I'm glad that's not the case. But I do think that this will be fine in the long run. I do agree with Devin that, there's going to be some people who are going to be confused, but if we're being honest, that's the way it is now. I mean, with Marvel films, you have people who don't keep up with it, and they come into the theater, they'll lean over and be like, why is he here? Like, what's going on? And it's like, if you don't keep up with it, you don't know. So it's just going to be one of those things where if you know, if you're in the loop, you are. And if you're not, well, good luck. That's just kind of where we are with a lot of media now. It's like, if you don't keep up with it, then that's kind of on you. I mean, that's just the way that it is now. It's like, it's up to the consumer to keep up with all these films and TV shows and know how to piece everything together, because a lot of these films are kind of done just explaining it. And, rightfully so. We don't need an origin story for every single thing. We don't need every single thing explained to us. We know how Superman came to be. We know how Spider-Man came to be. Just kind of like get on with it. Don't, for those who are still left behind, have them go home and read the cliff notes. So I mean,
and leave the cliff.
Yeah, I think that it'll be fine in the long run. I think it will start some confusion at first, but those that are confused now with all the Marvel movies and how everything ties together, they'll be the same people who are confused when the DC stuff comes out. So I think for the most part, people are more educated now about how to keep up with that sort of stuff. Just our generation, like millennials and of course Gen Z coming along. So I think we'll be fine, but anybody beyond that, they might, if they're not, heavy into the comics and just the movies like that, or they just like to go watch the films and just sit back and relax and, they don't really think about how everything connects, then they'll be the ones who are lost. But I just think that that's just where we are, and that's just something that we're just going to have to accept. So, yeah.
It is fascinating that you said, and I'm not saying I disagree with anything you just said, but it is fascinating that you were like, we shouldn't have to do an origin story for everybody. There was a time where, like, specifically editors, like comic book writers and editors would drill that into your head. Like, you've got to let them know what the origin is, what was happening last issue, who these characters are, everything relevant. Like Marvel and DC for years would go out of their way. They'd be like, sometimes it'd be in the form of unnecessary dialogue where they just basically like exposition. And then sometimes it would be, a full page spread at the beginning of every comic book explaining to you who all the relevant characters are, what they look like, what their names are, what happened over the last, 3 or 4 issues so that you could be caught up. And now it is interesting. And like I said, I don't disagree at all. It's interesting how we've gotten to a point where people are just like, hey, man, Wikipedia free, bro. Go do some goddamn research. Like, this ain't, like you catch up.
I mean,
after
like the Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, and then the Amazing Spider-Man, we didn't need Homecoming to explain it again. Yeah. So it's kind of like the same way with Superman. It's like we've had Christopher Reeve's Superman, we had Superman Returns, we had Man of Steel,
Henry Cavill.
We had the Justice League cartoon. We've had all this stuff. It's like we don't need it explained to us again. It's like just go into it. Yeah,
I agree. The only time I think you need a big to redo the origin is if you're gonna make some major changes. Yeah. And even then with films, I feel like, hey man, you still probably should skip the origin, because like I think we've gotten to a point now where most superhero films aren't going past trilogy. And so like you wasting a film on like an origin story when that film could have been anything else. And then you have like an extra film that you can do 1, 2, 3 instead of just like, we got to do the origin and then we got to do a middle film, and then like let's break out of that a little bit. As far as this Elseworlds stuff goes, I'm not sure I believe that shit is real. Like, I know what James Gunn said. I don't believe it. Like, DC's got a bunch of films coming out that they have coming out in the near future that they already promised would be coming out. They've already worked on them. You can't just undo them. Warner Brothers needs that money. They was letting Ezra Miller commit all types of crimes and told them, it's all good, come back and be Barry Allen for the film. They putting out these films. They not finna just sit here and all that money that they spent on all those films, and you think, and Warner Brothers is billions of dollars in debt, and you think they're gonna just sit there and be like, well, we got to get the DC universe right, so we go. No, they putting all those films out, and they're gonna put that Elseworlds label on it, and then they're gonna be like, yep, and then move the fuck on real quick.
Yeah.
And the real question is, after those, I think I named like 4 films. After those 4 films are out, I question how often we hear about the Elseworlds brand going forward. Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, they get grandfathered in for a couple more films, but they specifically said that would be a trilogy. Once Batman 3 is done, that's probably it for that. I think once we're done with most of these, they're going to shelve that Elseworlds label, and they should. The goal here is to create a consistent DC universe, and what Elseworlds really means is you don't have a tight enough control on your development pipeline. You're just allowing people to do vanity projects, and that's how we get nonsense like Batman versus Superman and the original 2016 Suicide Squad. That's how you get that bullshit. So like, no, I don't think, maybe they've got what's my man's name? Michael B. Jordan and Ta-Nehisi Coates and somebody else attached to do like a Black Superman project, and you might get that.
Bring back the Static Project, man.
That could be part of the DC universe proper. Like that, there's no need to make that Elseworlds.
Like, please.
But like, as
put
far
in
as
Black Lightning as his mentor,
long as he ain't the dad, we all good. But I mean, like that could be, you could bring that back. Like you could, if you do Michael B. Jordan Superman, like Black Superman, I'm fine with that. But like if I'm James Gunn and Peter Safran, I tell him, look, that's Superman from Earth, blah blah blah. Like I'd either do President Superman, which is a very popular character they've been using for like the last decade. I'm either doing President Superman or I'm doing Earth 2 Superman, where it's like the son of Zod, but he grew up on Earth and he grew up nonviolent and he's like a pacifist and he's forced to fight to protect his planet. That one, you could do that one. I'm not just going to let you come over here and do a Black Superman film and it's Clark Kent and he the exact same guy, but he Black. I'm not going to let you do that. And I mean, like, I'd love to see a Black Superman film, but I'm not going to introduce all this unnecessary confusion just for the sake of doing that. Like, no, you gonna use, like, we've got Black Superman characters in the comics. You're gonna use one of them, and that's what hopefully they do. Lastly, this one is very close to us because it's, we talk about video games, we play a lot of video games, and man, James Gunn, he might have overstepped on this one. So let's get into it. Should video games be tied into the new DC universe? James Gunn was pretty adamant about the idea of including games within this new DC universe. The example he used went counter to like movie tie-ins. Instead, he suggested, okay, Superman, he might have a movie, and then Supergirl, he might have a movie 2 years later. And in between that, so like the Superman movie comes out in 2025, Supergirl movie comes out in 2027, and then in 2026, maybe we get a crypto game. And I don't know if that's exactly, I doubt that we get a crypto game, but we might get a game about Superman's adventures between, Superman Legacy and his Supergirl. Is that unnecessary? And does that potentially take cool characters off the board? Devin, you seem like you have the most to say. What's up, Devin? Should video games be tied into this DC universe?
Man, let's be honest, man. We know Father Time has taught us that movie tie-in games are usually a pile of crickets and fire ants, meaning it's just a waste of time. It's just unnecessary. I've given some even games that are not necessarily like comic book universe. The Matrix games were trash. We had like one okay Matrix game. The Matrix was a critically acclaimed legendary movie that people love, but we never got a good game for it. The Green Lantern movie that came out with why am I going blank on this name now?
Ryan Reynolds.
Yes, Ryan Reynolds. That movie was trash. So the game was also trash. I mean, it's just like it just seems like these people, when these movies come out, these like, hey man, we got the cat. Hey man, this gonna be hot right here, man. This movie, man, we gotta make a game. It's like, and it's a lot of, most times it's not necessary, man. They have never been a good track record of movie tie-in games. You might have maybe some outliers, some very few, but mostly they trash. Also, the fact that Superman, one of the most legendary superheroes, if probably not the most legendary superhero, does not have a good game. How in the world does Superman not have a good game? So if they're going to do some tie-in game, if they make a Superman, they got to make it good. If these tie-in games come out and they trash, stop making DC games. Just stop. Just stop, except for Batman. Just stop. Because Superman does not have a good game. Superman, we got Spider-Man, got a lot of good games. Batman got all the games. I got a list of DC video games up on my desktop. Most of it's Batman. Like 85% of it is Batman.
Hey, look, you know what it stands for. Wins Batman.
The best DC games is like Batman games with Injustice. There's nothing else. There ain't nothing else. Like, I mean, you got Gotham Knights was a bucket dumpster. And I mean, MK versus DC don't really count. That was, that wasn't the best either. But most of this
if Gotham Knights is dumpster, MKDC got to be dumpster juice too. They both.
I mean, it definitely is, but I'm just saying it's not just a standalone DC game. That got some tie-in stuff. I'm talking about just straight up just DC stuff. No, I mean we know the track record of Superman. Superman 64, a legendary game, but not for the right reasons. Not for the right reasons. We never got no other good Superman. It baffles me.
That old Genesis game, what's it called? The Death and Return of Superman. That was the thing.
I never played that one.
Nobody
Never
else
played
did
that
either.
one.
I did.
Superman had a game on the Xbox. I don't know if it's any good.
Trash.
Superman X Man of Steel or something like that. It was based on like Superman in the comic. It was more of a comic. It pulled from the comics more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was good though.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Damn.
And that's the thing. It's just like if they do these tie-ins, man, they really got to sit down with these developers, man. They got to sit down and like make sure this stuff, because if they just like, hey man, we just gonna cash grab, they gonna suck. They gonna suck. It's just like let's at least get Superman a good game, man. At the very least. Now, I mean, there could be some cool concepts here. You got, I mean, if they're tying in like the like Krypton alone, that whole story, like Superman, Supergirl, that could be a very good game if done well. Like if you think about just like, I mean, it obviously would be open world. It's like other IPs have made better Superman games than Superman. It's like we have games that's very similar to how a Superman game could play, flying around, sandbox, of course, stuff like that. But why can't it's like when Superman plus coding mixes, it just makes trash. Like when they say, hey, we're gonna code a Superman game, it's just like it just don't work. So I'm honestly not optimistic about the game. I'm gonna just be frank as I can be about it. I will have to see something first. But then we're in an era now where seeing something even doesn't really get you there. You have to get your hands on the play. Like you just can't. Oh, that trailer, because I thought Gotham Knight had potential. It looked dope. It looked kind of cool to me at first. But when they showed that final product, I'm like, bro, like y'all should be ashamed of y'all. I showed Rakeem something earlier that was just like, why we got Nightwing over here doing a little jig? Like, yeah. And he just glitched out. Like, why is what? You go from them awesome Batman games to this, it's just like, come on, bro. So I'm gonna keep my fingers tightly crossed, triple crossed on this one. Like, so that's all I gotta say on that one, man. These movie tie-ins, man, if they do it right, tender love and care. But we know over time, the movie tie-ins just be butt. So
You're not wrong. I do want to get someone else's opinion. Somebody that's going to be optimistic about it for sure.
I was optimistic.
Rakeem, how do you feel about all these video games? Like, what do you think? You usually the voice of optimism. What you got for us?
So when I think about what James Gunn was talking about in this situation, I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to keep that interconnectivity that Marvel made famous with their MCU. However, it felt like someone who was speaking from the perspective of understanding a development timeline for television and films, but not game development. Game development is not what it was 10, 15 years ago. Assets are more expensive. You have HD graphics. There's so much more development pipeline stuff. There's delays. One delay in one or two of these games will ruin everything they're trying to do. And in this case, if they're doing tie-ins, the unfortunate part about that, which is the other side of the story, what Devin was talking about, why movie tie-ins were so bad, because they were rushed. They had to be done within a specific timeline. So they had to get those products out. They had to cut features, or they had to like, hey, everything ain't fixed. We put it out just like it is, because we got to get it out at this time.
Put out game, but
exactly. So I am very not worried, but like, this one or two things could go wrong. This could go really badly. Now, one thing I can say, we do have like one positive thing. We already have that Wonder Woman game in the works, which is pretty good. That's been developed. So that's gonna be developed for a little while. Suicide Squad's coming out. Verdict's out on that. I don't know what the game's gonna look like when it comes out. So they have some games in the pipeline, so we can kind of see the quality of the games that are coming out sooner and see how they do, and that kind of tell what they can build off of in the future. My question is, with these game pipelines, who are the studios going to be involved? Are you reaching out to multiple studios? It is going to be in-house with WB Games. Heck, they were trying to sell WB Games for like forever. So I'm not even sure, how stable that is. If it's just in-house, how much pressure you put on these developers to put out these new DC products to meet these timelines? And I feel like, personally, if you're gonna do a connected universe, keep your movie and TV stuff over here, and your games have their own universe and they tied to that. And that way you don't mix too much. And even doing games can be kind of difficult. But at least when you're doing game development, working with a studio if they do it in-house with WB Games, for instance, they can work together. They can pull from each other. They can work together on these different projects to keep the continuity, and it can work out that way. But I don't know. When I heard that, I was like, I don't think he's got a good understanding of how game development has changed over the years compared to back in the day. I'm optimistic that they can put out some good games. Definitely, I hope the Wonder Woman game is fantastic. She needs a good game too. We talk about Superman. Devin talked about Superman for 10 minutes. I'm like, bro, we ain't even got a good Wonder Woman game, a good Flash game, a good Green Lantern game.
We don't have a good anything other than Batman.
Batman.
Thank you.
Dude, Batman owns somebody that's standing tall in the video game department.
So like, a good game at all is good enough for a start. Let's get there.
Yeah.
You can build off of that, and I don't know. I just think they just got to get the right studio, somebody with a good vision of how to do this on the gaming side. James Gunn seems like he got the TV and the DCEU stuff locked down for the next 8 to 10 years. Good. If you want it to happen on the gaming side, you need to have somebody on the gaming end who can lead this vision on the gaming side the same way. I don't know if James Gunn can do all of that himself. He's gonna have to reach out to somebody whose expertise is more in gaming. We'll see if that happens. I hope they succeed, but I am kind of like, you might want to separate this and try from a different angle. That's all I say.
Got too much dip on your chip.
Got way too much fucking dip on his chip. I'm gonna be honest. I don't love the video game thing. For one, like Devin and Keem have said, video games are murky. A lot of times when you think you're done with a video game, you're ready to put it out, you realize something's broken in it, and that something can take you months to fix. Most of the games that hit some type of annual date forcibly, those will be the ones that are the most broken, the ones that's most lacking in content. And right after that are the ones that after that, as far as being broken or lacking in content, are the ones that refuse to delay whenever they know they need it. And like that type shit, you can't, like, I put it to you like this. Marvel has been doing this for well over a decade now. And like, they were like, we can do films and we can do TV. And then they left video games the fuck out of it. They have made a lot of Marvel video games. Marvel Spider-Man, Marvel Midnight Suns. Yep. They got a Marvel Iron Man coming out, a Marvel Black Panther, some weird ass Black Panther, Howling Commando, Captain America, whatever the fuck
America
that game
crossover.
is. Yeah, that, like, all these, none of them are tied together except like Spider-Man is tied to Spider-Man. That's it. But the big problem I have is that even if everything works perfectly, I don't love the idea to have to like the DC Universe films. Like when you play 2018 Spider-Man, that's not Tom Holland. They made it look like Tom, but that's not Tom. Like that Spider-Man, he didn't train under Iron Man. There's a Norman Osborn in his world. Harry's his best friend. He's already in college. All those things, they don't line up perfectly with like the MCU Spider-Man. They were free to do their own vision of a hero. And if you pull all of the games into this new DC universe, then those developers are not free to do their own version of a hero.
That's great.
So like you take Green Lantern. They showed a photo of Earth 1 Green Lantern. It's like a comic book called Earth 1 Green Lantern Earth 1. And he's like an alternate universe take on Green Lantern. They have heavier astronaut elements. The Earth is like a different look. They got different costumes, but it is Hal and John, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe the games, somebody wants to do a Green Lantern game, but they want to use Kyle Rayner because he's more creative. You know, he create giant robots and shit instead of a boxing glove. You know, he creates fun creations instead of like, you know, John. He create a sniper rifle to kill somebody. Like it. They're not the same type of Green Lanterns. But now you can't use Kyle because you haven't introduced Kyle in the DC universe proper, and you have no plans for him. Right. Maybe you want to make a Justice League game. But instead of doing regular Justice League, you want to do Justice League International. It's like a different roster, more lighthearted. Like they have more fun adventures and shit like that. You don't want to use Justice League Classic. Those are things that you're locking yourself out of. And yeah, you got that Elseworlds label, but if everything in video games is Elseworlds, then what is the point? What are you tying into? Like, so I don't love that at all. Like, personally, I think the sooner they realize that's not going to work, and it's only going to take one game. It's going to take one game for them to be like,
okay,
this ain't it. Like, one game that they working on, and it don't, because like games take a long time to come out with too. And Rakeem is right. Like, you've been trying to get rid of WB games for some years. Now all of a sudden, I guess they're gonna be invaluable to you, and you're gonna try to use all those studios together. But that's still not enough. Like I just don't see it. I don't see it. So I don't know. Will, what do you think?
as much as I would love to see some more video games come out of this, I'm not feeling it. Because, I mean, I'm going to be real. I know they have Wonder Woman and the Suicide Squad game coming out. We get that. We know those things are around the bend somewhere. They're on their way. And I hope that they are actually pretty solid. But with the track record that DC has, and with them thinking, oh, we can make these tie-ins, that you hit the nail on the head. That's where the problem really come into play, is trying to put these things together and trying to string them. Like, it's something about that feels like continuity is going to get knocked loose somewhere along the line. Someone's going to screw up a story, or someone's going to write a story well enough to place it here, but they're going to forget the events of what they had. So something's not going to make sense in the game or in that next movie, tying this movie in that game. You see what I'm saying? Something's going to go wrong somewhere. I can see that just causing nothing but problems. And like you said, game development is not the same as television and movie and cinema production. That stuff is not the same. These are completely different. So I can see maybe they want to put another game out. And what have we said? Like 5-6 years to get a game out, right? Somewhere along the line, if they are to put a movie out in 2025, they need to start looking at doing that game right now. They can't sit on that. They can't sit and be like, okay, we'll start the game in 2024. No, you can't. You're gonna be too far out. And at that point, you're gonna screw something up. And I also think if they're gonna do this, put some comic books in front of these people, give them homework assignments, and make them understand what it is they're doing, because they're gonna screw it up somewhere along the line. I hate to see it happen. I think if it does have a screw up, they need to be like, all right, we can't do this. Someone else has to, because it can't be us.
They need to know how to pivot. I agree. Like if you get one screw up after that, I feel like they'll pivot. As far as them knowing about comics, James Gunn has put out a list of comics. Well, not a list, but like screenshots of certain comics that he's like, this is, these are the comics we're kind of pulling from. They linked he linked All-Star Superman, like a GOAT Superman comic. He linked Superman, Woman of Tomorrow. I don't remember if he linked one for Swamp Thing, but he's linked a couple of photos for comic books. They've already sold out because everybody wants to know, like, okay, is this what you're pulling from?
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
I mean, that's very smart. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that was genius marketing.
Yeah.
Very good.
But yeah, like, just in general, I don't know. Like, I agree with you. You'd have to start today if you're gonna do a video, because like it's gonna take you 5 to 6 years to finish that game up. So 2028, 2029.
Yeah.
Now you've got some cushion because the first film is not coming out until 2025, and so you got a couple of years of cushion. But even then, like, that first game wouldn't hit in this first whatever y'all got play. Like, because I think that these few projects are supposed to hit within the first 2 or 3 years. Once the first project hit, everything else supposed to be within 2 or 3 years of that. And you might, if everything hit on point, and like say Swamp Thing is the last project, because that's the one that they showed. Like, was it Swamp Thing that was last shown?
Yeah, Swamp Thing's the last thing on the slate.
So if let's say Swamp Thing hits in 2028, after that you can have your first fucking video game. So like that's the type of shit that you got to think about when you go into this, unless you're gonna try to pull some Genshin Impact type shit, where you put out one game and then you add content to that one game over time, and then that's all tied into the DC universe. You might be able to get away with that. But even then, you better know how to do the content pipeline because MiHoYo has done something that I don't think any other developer is doing right now. So I don't know. Terrence, you want to wrap us up? You want to send us home? What do you feel about DC using their video games inside the DC universe?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of questions, but since we're kind of running low on time, I'll try and be quick about it. I definitely need him I definitely need James Gunn to offer some clarification on this, just because this opens. Yeah, I just have a lot of questions. One, so this kind of ties back to the idea of them keeping the same actors consistent. So does that mean the same actors that were doing the live action, also doing the voiceover for animated projects, are they also going to be the same one in these games? It's like pretty much it sounds like it sounds like if you're a DC actor, DC is all you're doing. you ain't doing any other projects. You're just working on DC all day, which I mean that's a consistent paycheck, but
that's also taking jobs off the table though, isn't it?
What?
In a
what
way,
do you mean?
Yes, I get what you're saying.
We're talking in terms of like other voiceover talent.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I was getting at. Is like, yeah, that makes it now where you just have only the film actors doing voiceover for the games, and historically that isn't always good because I mean, film actors aren't always good voice actors, and vice versa. So that's one question there. Another one is, and you all have kind of like talked about this, is I mean, game development takes a long time. So are we talking like PS6 games? Like, because if you start something now, that ain't like you said,
PS6 game.
Yeah,
that's a new system.
Yeah, that's 2028, 2029. We're going into the PS6 or whatever the next Xbox is going to be at that point. So
PS app or something.
Yeah, that's wild. So here's probably the biggest thing. If the games are incorporated into, if the games are canon, does that mean that you're gonna have to play the games to understand the full scope of the films and the TV moving forward? Which now that creates a lot of confusion because it's like okay, so it's one thing to have a person who watches films also watch TV shows because I mean that's, for the most part, that's doable. Like someone who watches TV, for someone who watches films, it's easier to get them to watch TV. Now, is that same person a gamer? Now that's a huge toss up. I mean, so unless this
half
is like
of America plays video games, or half of the world, half of the world plays video games, but they don't all play console games. They don't all play like the complex hella buttons on the controller. They not all playing those. So you're right. That's gonna be a huge ask.
Yeah, like not everybody's playing console AAA games. Like, yeah, people play games, but a lot of those are like the more like simplistic like mobile games. So asking them to also play like a full scale open world superhero game to understand the full scope of the movies and TV shows, nah, I don't know about that. So I'm thinking it has to be like very loosely tied in, because if it's like something like major happens in the game and you need to play the game to understand what's going to happen in the movies, like no way, that cannot work.
Yeah.
And then like lastly, and this is just me just kind of like tossing this in here just because I thought about it a couple hours ago. I wonder if maybe that's kind of what happened with the Injustice 3 game. I mean, there's more to it than that, but I kind of wonder if maybe there's something that was going on behind the scenes, you know, with WB and their talks with all this that maybe adds another reason to why Injustice 3 didn't happen. Of course, also you had the restructuring of WB and HBO and all that, but I wonder if this also plays a little part into it. Maybe the like down the line NRS could work on something that is tied into the movies, but that's just totally conjecture at this point. That's just me, just speculating. But I do wonder if maybe that factors into the reason why NRS isn't, like, why Injustice 3 didn't happen. But yeah, I just have a lot of questions, and I hope James Gunn clarifies some things, because like you all said, I just don't see how this could work. I don't know how you tie games into it. Like, film and TV is one thing, but putting games into it, nah, that's just a recipe for disaster for all the reasons you all have said. All it takes is one wrong delay and everything is off. So yeah, I just don't see it.
You actually brought up something that I didn't think about, but like basically the ask, you can't expect someone's grandma a video game, a 40-hour video game to understand anybody's 40-year-old dad. Like these people, other people got shit to do, and like asking them to play some fucking 20-hour, 30-hour, 40-hour video game, that's not happening. And so what you've done now is locked yourself into making sure that the video games only ever have irrelevant stuff to tie into the universe. And if that's the case, then why do that?
Yeah.
Why not just not tie them in and let them be their own thing? And like Rakeem said, it could be a universe unto itself. But even then, I'm like, if you notice, Marvel's Midnight Suns does not tie into Spider-Man.
Nope.
So like, I just don't see, like, it's okay to look at Marvel a little bit. Like, I understand you want to copy. Yeah, I understand that you don't want to do that. But like, at least look at them a little bit and be like, okay, they not doing this. Why aren't they doing it? And then all you got to do is ask around a little bit, and you'll very quickly realize, like, that's why we can't do that. That it's just going to be a logistical mess, and nobody's going to benefit. The moviegoers and like the people that are interested in it from that perspective, they won't be interested. They're not going to pick up anything from the video games. The video game fans, if we lock it into like mostly irrelevant events, they're going to be unhappy. Everybody's unhappy all around. Let's just make games that are good, that aren't connected to the universe. Because I know they're trying to maximize their profits. In that way, maybe you would be maximizing your profits just by making sure that you have a lot of high quality games coming out. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. I need a few things from y'all. If you're watching, I need you to do us a favor and hit that subscription button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on Twitter and TikTok. Don't just check us out. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody. Tell your coworkers. You don't know, you might make a new friend. And I need you to do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace.